Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the MCDFNL Footy Show for another week. Great to be joining you once again. Split round this week in the MCDFNL, so plenty of teams having the weekend off, but also some pretty interesting and crucial games of football happening this weekend across the Merriwa-Castlemaine District Football and Netball League as well. Shaun Kelly's my name, in the host chair as always, and joining me once again this week, he's back. Decided not to phone it in this week. He's actually made an effort to come into the studio and get this show down. Sam Gowers. Sam, welcome back, mate. Great to have you back.
Thanks, mate. Glad to be back.
We were discussing whether to bring you back in or not because the ratings did spike with the Chief on last week, and female viewership was at an all-time high with two good-looking roosters like himself and myself on the show. But we've decided we'd do the right thing and bring you back in and just see what happens.
I reckon just one bloke would have been responsible for those spikes, Shaun.
Well, that would be me.
You're on here every week, and they're always down. Jake might have put them through the roof, I reckon.
Could have done as well, but he's actually our first talking point because it's goodbye to the Chief. Today, as of filming, is officially his last day with the MCDFNL and going to greener pastures. And whether they are greener, we never know. But we wish him all the very best of luck with his new career path. Jake Dunn heading out to a job in interior design, I believe.
Yeah, not sure what the Chief's experience is in interior design, but as you said, best of luck to him. He's done a great job in his short time at the MCDFNL.
Yeah, he has.
I'm sure everyone would agree.
He has indeed. And I suppose in the interim, AFL Goldfields Commercial and Regional Operations Manager Aaron Nunn will be filling in as the Operations Manager for the MCDFNL for the remainder of the 2016 season, and then from all reports the job will be advertised in October with a view to hiring somebody in November to serve as the MCDFNL Operations Manager after that. And it's a little bit of shuffling of the chairs here at AFL Goldfields, but obviously Nunny, with his vast experience running the Ballarat Football League, will be a fantastic person for the job.
Yeah, he certainly will. He's got plenty of experience under his belt, so I'm sure he'll do a great job, as you said.
Yeah, he certainly has indeed. Talking point number 2, obviously, as we mentioned off the top of the show, the split round this week. 3 games being played this week, 4 games being played next week, and it's at the same time every year. It's always round 13 every year, or round 14 as it is, every year, and really gives teams, players, supporters a chance to freshen up over the next 2 weeks, recharge the batteries before a big couple of weeks to end the season.
Yeah, it certainly does. It also gives blokes a chance, I suppose, that have been maybe carrying little niggles or have been injured that extra week to recover ahead of finals. So I'm sure there's plenty of coaches out there that are thankful for the break.
Yeah, I dare say there will be indeed. So we'll have a look at 3 games this week. We'll have a look at the 4 games next week as well. So the show will be a little bit shorter over these couple of weeks, which is probably better for the concentration spans of the viewers. So that's not a bad thing at all.
No, goldfish like concentration levels, I reckon.
Correct, indeed. Talking point number 3, though, having a look at the results from last week, some huge results across the league. Put the ladder up on the screen at the moment. Now, talking points this week are going to centre around the positions on the ladder from 7 till about 11, because we wrote Trentham off for dead on this show a few weeks back and said that they were going to absolutely struggle to make the finals. Have a look where they are now. They've moved into 8th position. A great win last week against Denali, and all of a sudden they're sitting in one of the box seats to get themselves up and running and into the finals. But I suppose it's time to have a look at the runs home for the teams that are sitting 7, 8, 9, 10, and even Harcourt in 11th on that ladder, because they're still mathematically a chance to get in there. And let's start it with the team in 7th spot at the moment, Newstead, and have a look at how they sit with their last 3 games.
The Newstead's probably the favourites to win one of those 7 or 8 spots. They've got Harcourt at home, which you think they'd probably win, but it could be interesting.
It's interesting. You'd put it as almost a 50-50 because Harcourt, as we'll talk about shortly, need to do a little bit more than the rest of these teams to get in there.
Yeah, they certainly do. Trentham at home and then Creek away for Newstead. So, like I said,
it's 3 winnable games.
Yeah, probably the favourite to stay in that top 8.
You'd think so as well. Let's have a look at Trentham in 8th spot. You've mentioned that one of their games is against Newstead, and that could be a determinant, obviously. That will decide, I reckon, one of those final spots. Whoever wins that round 15 game will play finals. It's just obviously there's still another spot to go. How's Trentham's run look?
Trentham has got Avoca away, Newstead, like we mentioned, and then Lexington at home to finish the year. So a little bit tougher for the Saints.
It is. It's a little bit tougher. They'd start favourites in the Avoca game. Obviously, they'll need to win that Newstead game. And then Lexington in the last game, Lexington will probably start favourites, but they can win that game if they come to play.
Yeah, they certainly can.
Especially at Trentham.
Yeah, Trentham certainly made me and you look a bit stupid after we wrote them off. So
they have indeed.
I'd write them off at your peril. So I'm going to say they might stay in the top 8.
The team that slipped out Denali of the top 8 last week with that loss to Trentham, how does their last 3 games look?
It's not too bad. They start off with Bushy at home, which is obviously going to be a tough
Ouch.
job. No one's beaten the Tigers yet this
Nope.
year. Avoca away and then Malden at home to finish the year.
So they'll probably win the last two, although Avoca will give themselves a chance against Denali. It just depends on which Denali shows up, as we know. You'd probably pencil them in for 2 of the 3, which it depends on what happens with Trentham.
Yeah, it certainly does. I'd say it'll be a battle for 8th spot between Trentham and Denali, but we'll wait and see how that plays out.
We will indeed. The Rovers sit in 10th spot at the moment. They had a big win to keep themselves in the conversation last weekend, but they've probably got the toughest run home of all of the teams that we're talking about. How are they looking?
Yeah, really tough run home for the Magpies. Talbot away, Maddie away, and then Bushy at home to finish the end of the season off. Makes things very, very tough for Rovers, especially after that loss to Campbell's Creek the other week.
Yeah, exactly right. Look, they probably need to get the Talbot game because we know, obviously, that last round, Maryborough Rovers versus Royal Park, anything can happen. It always does in that last round of the season. And Rovers won that game in a similar spot last year where they had to win to get into finals. They won the game. Of course, other teams did no favours and they finished 9th. But if they beat Talbot, which is a big if because Talbot are flying at the moment, they'll give themselves a chance to play finals. But at the way that they're playing at the moment, they're probably... If I was a betting man, I probably wouldn't have money on him in any of those games.
No, they're especially that Bushy home game. Like you said, anything can happen, but it's a different proposition against the Tigers this year. Yet to drop a game on top of the ladder and probably premiership favourites. So really tough draw to finish the end.
You've got those 4 teams all sitting on matching points at the moment, and then behind Harcourt, a game behind those teams need to basically win all 3 of their games, plus have some results fall their way to go in. How do their last 3 games look, Sammy?
They start off with 2 really winnable games. One against Newstead, probably, like we said, a 50-50 game.
Yep.
Malden, which you'd probably pencil in as a
win.
But finish the year with a game against Carisbrook, which makes things really tough for the Lions.
And Carisbrook could really be looking for a top to kind of move up from the 4th spot that they're in at the moment with that one. So could be some very interesting times coming up. Which way are you looking? Newstead, Denali, Newstead, Trentham?
I'm going to go stay as it is, Newstead, Trentham.
Yeah.
But wouldn't be surprised if Denali slides up into 8th.
It's really... when you think about it, you look at the mathematics of it and it says that there's 5 teams there. Really, it's Newstead, Denali or Trentham, isn't it, for 2 spots?
Yeah, just that draw with Maryborough Rovers probably
Yeah.
rules them out, and they'd be kicking themselves after some of their early season losses.
Yeah,
Really
exactly
winnable
right.
games that they dropped.
Oh, well, that's the thing. They'll go into next week against Talbot and think they can win the game because, as we know, Talbot literally beat them on the last kick of the day in that season opener. So they'll go in thinking they can win that, and yeah, it gets tough for them though, doesn't it?
Certainly does. Games against 2 top 3 sides in Natty and Bushy pretty much rules them out, you would have thought.
You'd think so. Let's have a look, though, at the games that will comprise the first week of the split round here in the MCDFNL this weekend, and it starts with one of those games that we've been talking about, Avoca taking on Trentham at the Avoca Public Park. Trentham's form over the last couple of weeks has been very, very good. Avoca at home, though, they'll have penciled this one in, I reckon, and they'll be looking at this one as a win.
Yeah, they will. I think both sides probably will have penciled this in as a really winnable game for either team. I'm going to go with Trentham. I think their form probably over the last month or so has just been a little bit better than the Bulldogs.
Trentham got a bit more to play for, but Avoca will really relish the opportunity to shape the finals here, I reckon, and they know that they can nearly end Trentham's season with a win here today.
Yeah, they will. And Avoca, obviously, a new coaching panel. They want a little bit of momentum maybe going into pre-season, into next year, so they can attract some players. So that'll give them a bit of a boost as well.
Yeah, it certainly will be an interesting game to keep an eye on. We'll definitely be keeping an eye on the scores throughout the day with that one. Malden taking on Campbell's Creek. Campbell's Creek doing some nice work in recent weeks, of course. Went up against Navarre last week, which probably excluded them from the conversation that we just had about finals, but they'll start favourites in this one against Malden. That being said, Malden, really impressive game a couple of weeks ago at home against Trentham. They'll think that if they can bring a day like that and bring the heat like they did, that they could give themselves a chance of winning their first game.
Yeah, they could. They'd be desperate to get a win on the board before the end of the season, but I just think Campbell's Creek, particularly after they were so impressive against Maryborough Rovers the other week, I think they'll probably get over the line here.
Game of the round, I suppose, on both sides of the split round. This next one will be a ripper, and I think that's where most of the attention will be from a spectating point of view this weekend. Carisbrook taking on Navarre at Royal Carisbrook this weekend, and this is going to be a great game because this is a real test. A lot of people, and it's including 2 of us on the panel, have spoken about how high octane that Carisbrook forward line is this year and how dangerous they're going to be in the finals. This is the chance for us to show exactly how dangerous they're going to be because we know how good Navarre are. We know that they've had that one blemish on their record against Royal Park this year, but Timmy McHale will have penciled this one in. He'll say, this is the one where we want to make a statement and we can beat Navarre. Navarre, on the other hand, will be looking to say, well, hang on a second. All these blokes are chasing us. We need to just stay a step ahead of them.
Yeah, really, really interesting game. I reckon it comes down to if Carisbrook can get their full lineup on the park this week. We know throughout the season, injuries and unavailability have probably kept them from getting their best 22 out on the park. If they can, I think they'll give Navarre a real shake, but obviously not going to tip against the Grasshoppers.
Do you think that the win or loss actually would make a difference to Carisbrook on this one? Obviously, they've got a few out at the moment. They've got the bye next week to freshen a few blokes up for finals. They've got a couple of interesting games in the last round. They've got Harcourt and they've got Royal Park, which obviously are going to be very competitive games. Do you think that this is a chance for them to say, well, let's do what we can against Navarre. Let's get some intel on them before the finals. Let's just really kind of not put the cue in the rack, so to speak, but if they don't win this game, try and get as close as they can, put some doubts in their head, and just really kind of put something in the bank for finals, and the fact that they're playing Bushy in 2 weeks' time.
It is an interesting proposition, but knowing a few blokes from Carisbrook, knowing Tim McKay, I just can't see them, I suppose, doing that. Right. I think they'll go all out to beat Navarre. Whether they can or not, we'll wait and see. Corey Taylor, a bit of an injury cloud, left the ground at half-time last week with a corking. Did not return. That would be a big blow for Carisbrook if he didn't come up.
Yeah, it would be indeed. Going to be a very, very interesting game and a very interesting week in a shortened week of MCDFNL action this weekend with the start of the split round. It's been a pleasure bringing you the MCDFNL Footy Show for another week. Thanks, of course, to our great partners at Bendigo Bank in Maryborough for their assistance in bringing the Footy Show to you each week. Sammy, great to have you back this week, mate. Thanks for coming along. Hopefully that this is the start of a good run for you leading into finals as well, because you need to lift.
I do need to lift, but proven finals performer, I reckon.
So you to keep telling me as well. I did watch a Natty final last year and you did absolutely nothing.
That would be because I did not play.
Correct. That's why you did nothing.
Yes, I didn't play, so you've really shot yourself in the foot.
Not really.
No, I was good, actually, as a runner.
A good runner. Yeah, that's exactly right. Beautiful work, though, by yourself. Beautiful work by you two joining us here on the MCDFNL Footy Show again this week. We'll see you again next week.